Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Professional Volunteer Fire Department and another installment of the podcast by that name. Tom Merrill here. Glad to have you joining us live from FDIC 2022. So good to be back and with the 35,000 brothers and sisters from the fire and EMS service. And joining me today, I have two very special guests. On my right, former chief and current fire commissioner Paul Griebner from the Snyder Fire Department, and to my left, our current chief of department, Tim Oliver. And I thought it would be great to have them on today to share their experiences on this podcast. And again, as a reminder, this is the podcast dedicated to our great volunteer fire service. And every month we talk about relevant topics of concern, share success stories, share the challenges, and maybe even share some of the missteps experienced in our volunteer fire service. The ultimate goal is to continue to reinforce the message that professionalism is defined not by a paycheck, but by compassion and empathy and competency. That's what it's all about. And I know you share that same message with me, and you are also endeavoring to get it out there into the communities that you serve and also with your neighboring fire departments. Together, we can all work to be as professional as possible. So thanks for joining, and thank you for my very special guests for being here, gentlemen. So good to be here in Indy. Weather's been okay. It's been a little chilly, but all in all, not bad. Chief, I'll start with you. Why don't you give a little background of your fire service career? How many years you have in Snyder now? Like 70? No, I'm just kidding. Feels like it goes fast, right?
No, I started in 94, so I'm just celebrated after 28 years this past March.
28 years, elevated to chief of department at our installation dinner a couple of weeks ago. And that's no short climb in our department. Tim represents our eighth chief. Well, it's been 8 chiefs, I should say. He's taking over now after our eighth chief, who went 5 straight years. For 40 years now in my department, the chiefs have all served the maximum per our rules, per our regulations, per our bylaws, the maximum 5 terms. That was something we put into place back in the 70s. And since 1982, all chiefs have served the maximum 5 consecutive terms. Tim, you're going to keep it going, I have no doubt. So he's going to be the 9th chief to do that. And I'm going to be able to sit here in a few years and 5 more years and say, we've done it for 45 years now. Not to put the pressure on.
Thanks.
Not to put the pressure on. How many FDICs? Too many to count?
My first one was in 98, and how many to be sure, it's got to be close to 20 now. I mean, there's been years that I didn't go, but
yeah,
I
bet you're at 20. I know I counted. I'm at like 22 now. And to my right, Commissioner Paul Griebner, a little bio on you, Chief. I still call him Chief. He was the chief that served just after me. You were number 7 in that list, correct? So
correct.
How many years you got in now?
Well, 33 in Snyder and 36 in the fire service, and 3 years now as a commissioner. So from the other side, followed you obviously in that role as chief and then as commissioner. So been coming to FDIC since 1994, and like Chief Oliver, I haven't been to every one, but probably 2022 in that range too. So,
Cincinnati for you or no?
No,
Were you
no,
you never
no.
remember the Cincinnati
no, the
group?
first year here, I remember in Chief Couple, and we stayed out by the airport and it snowed. So that's my memory of 1994.
Wow. Well, I know in those days too, sometimes it was in February. I know in 2001
Yeah.
when I was here, it was in February.
yeah.
So
Yep, I'm sure you're right, which is again why I'm sure. I mean, it wasn't like we had to, get the plows out, but it was, that's how you remember things sometimes.
So, gentlemen, you've been here so often. I mean, all 3 of us, at least, let's say on average, 20 years. What brings you back? Tim, what keeps bringing you back?
Training. I mean, the training, the show itself is, second to none. It's you can't get better training out there, and just the names of people that instruct, and you see them every year, and they always come back with something different. Sometimes they're the same, but a lot of times there's little tweaks, and you always learn something new.
Yeah, training is unparalleled. What about you, Commissioner Griebner?
It's a great question because, and I'm glad to see Tim here, because when I was chief, I thought it was very important for the reasons Tim just stated. But once I got out of chiefdom, I thought, well, you know what? There's probably nothing for me here. But you know what? I'm wrong, because there is something, and then there's always something. For instance, recruitment, retention, and cancer have kind of been my things, and of course, there's several classes on both of those subjects. And I'll tell you the other thing that keeps you coming back. It recharges the batteries. been in the fire service a long time. I'm 66 years old, so I'm starting to slow down a little bit, but
No, you're
recharges
not.
those batteries.
No, he's not. Don't listen to that. He's not slowing down.
No.
Still one of our top responders. Well, he's retired now from his paycheck earning job. So night or day, he can be counted on to be getting the first rig out. So you're not slowing down too much there,
Appreciate that,
Commissioner. The other thing I think that just thought of is we sit here and talk about how we keep coming back for the training and that. And I won't say we're old. We're getting older. You're definitely not old. I mean, I'm getting older. Maybe you are old. I don't
I
know.
am old. I told you.
Getting there, young, getting there, old. No, just kidding. But no, what's bringing us back? The training. So what does that say that we're still coming back? Now, of course, in your role as chief, you still obviously want to stay on the cutting edge. You want to know what's going on. You want to stay abreast of things. In our role, and I mean, we're commissioners, but we're still taking fire classes, tactical classes, as much as other classes that might help us in our commissioner roles. But what does that say? It says you're never too old to learn. You've never been doing this job long enough to know it all. And you've never been doing it long enough where you can't still learn something new or a different way of doing things, or even just a new leadership trait, or just whatever it is, see a new product. It never ends. And when it does end, what? It's time to get out. Don't you agree?
Yep, absolutely. And you're right. I mean, and the other thing too is you get different perspectives on things too. That doesn't mean everything you hear, but you weigh it, right? I
Mhm.
mean, you hear point A and then you hear point B. And again, I mentioned earlier about recruitment retention, which I think a lot of us are, if not all of us, are challenged with that. And
Mhm.
you come here to get those great ideas and that we can take back to our departments.
Yeah. And then the
Right.
other aspect of the conference, and if you've been, and I'm sure you want to get back for it. And if you've never been, I highly encourage you to come for what we just talked about, the trade show, the training. But you know what else? The networking that you can do with your sisters and brothers, your peers. Some are fire service legends that you can just happen to come across it in the conference center or even out at night. They're always approachable. They're always willing to share words of wisdom, and they're always willing to listen to you and what you have to say. And over the years, we've certainly crossed paths with some of the iconic legends in our American fire service, have we not, Chief?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Every year.
Absolutely. And it's a great thing when you're here. No one is standoffish, and there's a lot, you can learn a lot after hours. I mean, you certainly can learn in the classroom, and you will learn in the classroom or at the hot training evolution, but my gosh, you can learn just as much out later on at night or in the convention center when you come across these individuals, because they have so much to share and they're willing to share. And hey, how about something new this year, right? They combined GEMS, or brought GEMS in, the Journal of Emergency Medical Services, right? To have their conference here at the same time. Women in Fire are here again. This place is popping.
Yep.
We're looking out over the trade room floor, which is filled with thousands of products and millions of dollars worth of equipment, and just so much going on. And with GEMS, we're excited. We were sitting there watching a video they were advertising tomorrow. They're doing what do they call it? It's like a real live EMS competition where they throw scenarios at these teams. I believe there's 2 FDNY teams. I guess it's a man and a woman
There's a
team.
male team and a female team.
And-
all male versus all female.
And then Chief Halton couldn't remember where the other
We
teams
think they
were
decided
from.
Miami-Dade.
Was it
didn't they?
Miami-Dade? Okay. And they're going to go
Exactly.
at it. They're going to compete with each other with some real live scenarios that they get thrown at, and they're going to do it in real time. And I don't even know how they judge something like that. I've never seen it, but I'm really intrigued, and I'm
Yep.
hoping I can get down there. But folks, see this catalog? It's loaded, or hear this catalog if you're listening to a podcast. It's loaded with so many classes. And I keep saying I got to get onto the trade room floor to see the products, but I keep finding classes that I want to take. Are you guys having that issue? Because I'm having that issue. But
Yep, I would agree. And there's always those conflicts, but that's a good thing. I mean, you want a lot of opportunities, right? And that's just that you got such a broad spectrum of people
yeah.
that, so that's a good thing to have a lot of conflicts.
Yeah. A lot of options. You got to balance it.
And Chief, with you just taking over as chief of department, I know you've had 10 years as an assistant chief and many years as a captain, so you're experienced. But now that you've taken it up to the final notch there of chief, is there something different you're looking for out of FDIC or anything new, or maybe a better way to do something? Anything that you're specifically seeking out or maybe did earlier in the week with the training you've taken so far?
A lot of it's the same. Like you always go into it looking for new ideas, new drill ideas, new topics that you can train on. And that's why I always instill in the officers that come down here is that, find something that you liked and develop a drill on it. And we've talked about it before that a lot of our policies and a lot of our procedures have stemmed from things that we've learned here over the last, 30 or 40 years. So it's, everything is always evolving. So you're always looking for, something that may change a little bit, tweak it here and there, but you're always looking for that new idea.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. You hit the nail on the head there with our SOP, SOGs, best practices, whatever you want to call it in your area. So much of how we do things back home in our department, we learned here and brought back to try. It doesn't mean everything we learn here we take back and do, but we try it. But a lot of our bread and butter operations, the techniques have been perfected here and they've been written into our SOP and SOGs. For me personally, I don't know if I've ever told this story on this podcast before, but I was charged back in 1997, which really wasn't that long ago. I know it is, but it doesn't seem. Well, in 1997, the chief of department at the time charged me as a second assistant chief to help rewrite our high-rise SOP procedures. So I came with a captain, Mike Galuza. We took several high-rise training classes, including hands-on, and came back to Snyder and wrote and developed our high-rise SOPs that for the most part are still followed today. So that's another great reason to come here and soak up the knowledge, because there's things you can take back home and put in your playbook. And you should have a playbook, at least to get the bread and butter operations up and running. And no better place to learn than here. Now, I know one of the classes you went to, Chief, was appropriately titled like chief officer, forget the exact name, but by Chief Salka, Chief Lasky, they do a chief officer class, and you were in that for 4 hours. You got any takeaways from that class?
A lot of good leadership. Anytime you can listen to those two guys is well worth your time. Just their wealth of knowledge and experience that they can instill upon you is amazing. And you did get a few leadership qualities and letting your people take care of business, giving your officers the responsibility to lead, to be officers, really. And as the chief, just kind of sit back, and if there's an issue, then you get involved, but you let them, if somebody has a problem, you let them deal with it. I shouldn't say let them deal with it, but you let them handle it. And if it gets beyond that, then then you can step in and put your 2 cents in and have the final say, I guess you could say. But a lot of stuff like that.
One of the things I picked up, it's in my notes here somewhere that I wrote down in one of the classes, was the importance of officer development. In so many agencies, we elect them or appoint them, however it's done back home, and then they think about developing them as an officer. And if you can do it ahead of time and start getting your younger members leadership training ahead of time before they even get into the role, you're going to be better off. And then as you go up the chain, there's even more advanced training that you can take, such as the chief did. And there's so much, another great reason to come here to FDIC. Did they say anything about like even just establishing expectations with your lieutenants and captains, and just, how can we get mad at our officers if we're not letting them know what we expect out of them?
For sure. Yep.
And I think,
and I just had an officers meeting here a couple weeks ago, and I laid it out and said, I expect you guys to, if whatever responsibility, we have officers have different responsibilities, and do your job.
Yeah.
If there's a captain that's the senior officer in charge of equipment, and then there's a lieutenant that's a junior officer. If you can't do something as a captain, have your lieutenant do it. Just go on down the line. If use your people.
And that entails that C word, communication, right? So have a
Communication, yep.
good open, we have more ways to communicate today than ever before. And I think we fail miserably at it. We used to always have to make a phone call if we didn't see somebody personally. I mean, between email, social media, text messaging, there are so many ways to communicate, and yet we seem to fail miserably at it. So setting expectations, communicating clearly, all of that is so important in the officer ranks. You know what else it equals when they do that? It's ownership. They take ownership of their responsibilities. And let me tell you, if you're an officer out there, some of the jobs that are maybe delegated to you, you might not like that much. Someone might have to be in charge of the foam supply, right? Someone has to be in charge of the EMS equipment. Maybe someone's got to be in charge of just the janitor supply. So whatever it is back home, you've got to take ownership of it. Successful leaders and officers take ownership for what they are responsible for. I heard a quote once that, the only one common denominator of all successful people is that they take responsibility. And that's the end of the quote. It doesn't say responsibility for what, it's just they take responsibility. So that's all encompassing. Whatever it is in life that they're responsible for, they take ownership of it. So great to see that our new chief went into a chief officer development class with two of the most iconic fire service chief officers that are out there teaching. And I'm sure you got a lot of great information out of it that you're going to be able to employ. And I'm sure some of it reinforced maybe what you were already doing. But no matter how many times you've been through classes and done things, there's nothing better than hearing it again, because repetition is great. And how about you, Commissioner Griebner? What kind of stuff were you involved in so far?
Well, a couple of things which I've mentioned, but the first one was recruitment retention, which in our department, and I think this is very interesting, they've renamed that recruitment and engagement. And I think that's an excellent, because of the fact that, we want to engage people. I think that was a great point. That's a committee that we have back in our fire station. And I thought that was a great way to look at it.
Let me expand on that just a little bit, because that is a great topic, recruitment and engagement. And what that means is, as he said, is just getting your members more engaged. So you can recruit members all you want. You can retain members, but are they participating members, right? I think that's what the focus is going to be. We want to get the members engaged. Yes, of course, on the emergency calls, right? But also in the activities at the firehouse. I'm not going to say we're going to throw your life away and have to do everything, but we need to reach out. We're finding this is something we find out. We need to do a better job reaching out and getting these new members to participate. Sometimes they might be too timid or nervous and they don't know, right? So
a couple of things with that dovetail off of that. One is the mentor program, which helps, because to your point, one of the things with the engagement is, on the fire side, but you're right, on the social side, so important to volunteer fire service. That's the basis of why we're here today, 100+ years later.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the community got together. And sometimes in this day and age of people running in 12 different directions, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
But you're right, that's part of it. Get the especially the newer members to come to the social events and do those types of things. So I think that's definitely, and of course, what's that going to lead? That's going to lead to the family being on board, supporting the firefighter, and that firefighter can then do their job.
And we can't do anything without the support of our families. So
Amen.
yeah, it definitely wins there. I remember another thing I picked up in one of the classes when it comes to engaging members is give them things to do. Don't overburden them, obviously, but if you get them involved in projects and ask them to assist in certain areas, then they become a better contributing member. They get more engaged and are more likely to help out even down the road. So I think that is something that is huge. So I love the name, recruitment and
I give the
engagement.
committee all the credit. So that's why I wanted to share it today. I thought it was important. And just again, a couple of comments, based on what you were saying. And again, you're talking about, the chief was talking about assigning things, and the things that get done behind the scenes and nobody sees, the speedy dry, the EMS gloves. That's just if I can say it, the non-sexy stuff. And we need those are the kinds of things you got to do and to run the organization. A lot of that falls on the officers, chief. I think you would agree, but it can, firefighters can help out too. So I think that's I think that's very important. And the other thing I would say is that, like a lot of projects or a lot of committees, you need a champion. You need someone that's going to go and take on a project and run with it. And that's sometimes hard to find, but you definitely need that person to be that champion.
You know, you mentioned that other thing we got going on too. See, our department, like probably most, is we said we've got to get better engaged with our community to bring new members in. So we've got this active campaign going on with an active committee. And the other side of the committee, they put together a mentor program as
Right,
well.
right.
And what we did is we're not just assigning anybody as a mentor. We asked for volunteers. They were vetted out by this committee,
Yep.
right?
Correct.
And we had people that had just a short time in, to some very senior members step forward and volunteer to be a mentor. And then when we bring a new member in, they're assigned a mentor to kind of show them the way, to kind of help them figure out what they need to do, where they need to be, and also encourage them to come around more and just help the company out in other ways. And one thing we noticed, right, is we lost 2 years basically of good social activities.
Mhm.
So another thing our engagement committee came up with, working in conjunction with our administrative side, is family activity night to bring people up to the firehouse. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, the spouses or significant others or friends of the member can meet other spouses, significant others, or other friends of the members. And then when we have a more formal event down the road, people know each other a little bit better and are able to hang out more comfortably and talk to each other. Chief, how would you say that social activity has been going? We've been doing a cornhole game night once a month for the last 3 months now.
You know, I unfortunately haven't been able to attend the events, the cornhole events, the first 2 months because I was either working or out of town. But this past weekend, I had an opportunity to stop up and see it, and it looked a lot of fun. Like there was a lot of people, there was a lot of engagement. What do you say, about 40 people?
Mhm.
I
Yes.
think
Mhm.
on Saturday
Yep.
night,
Mhm.
and you know, it was great. Everybody seemed to have a really good time, and you
People
know,
brought a dish to pass.
socializing. People were brought food to pass around. The department bought some food for people to enjoy, and you know, I think it's a great thing to have, and hopefully when the weather soon to be turns better,
It snowed in Buffalo
we
yesterday, by the way.
can we can actually do it outside, and
Yeah.
so
Yep.
yeah.
You would.
But
Uh,
no, I think it's great. I think it's a great thing that
And
they,
credit to our vice
yeah,
president.
Vice President.
Our
Chris
vice
Oates,
president's credit.
Who championed that idea.
he
may I
did.
just
He
say, may I
Yep.
just say.
Yes, he
He's
did.
gone with it.
Yep, Chris Oates ran with it. He's our vice president. Give him kudos. And folks, so again, we have these challenges in my department, just like you have in yours. And we luckily had some people get together, say, what can we do? From the recruitment side of thing to the engagement side of thing. And then we noticed we were having trouble getting social activities up off the ground after COVID. So this was an idea that our vice president came up with. He's got several other ideas he's going to be exploring. The bottom line is, in the volunteer fire service, now you hear me say it all the time, the volunteer fire department can't just be a social club. We have a very, very serious side of the business. There are no doubt, very serious. However, there has to be a social component in any professional volunteer fire department. You have to make your members want to be around, be comfortable when they're around, but also you have to have it where their families understand what they're doing, but also in their families are welcome at the firehouse, and we have activities for them as well. So everyone gets to know each other. And I like to say it, one department, one click, everybody's together. What do you think of that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
no,
you know, and if I could add something with Chris, you know, Chris, life member, 25 years in the department, and for a long time, he had kids, and you know, the kids are now, you know, both in the Army, and he didn't have the time to spend up there that a lot of people did. But since then, he decided he was going to run for vice president, and now has all these ideas, and you know, that just goes to show that there's people in your department that may not be around, but they have good ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and you just have to listen to them.
Right.
You know,
Right.
you have to take their ideas and say, okay, yeah, let's go with it.
And understand people
Yeah.
go through different phases of life, such as Chris did. When Chris was busy, he was coaching hockey, traveling with hockey
Yep.
teams, and he couldn't come around much. I mean, he met our minimum standards, he was able to do that. And now he's got more time and he's able to help us out this way. So, we didn't cast him off a few years ago, maybe when he wasn't coming around. He met his minimum standards and now he's coming up with some great ideas for us. But it takes work. There's no ulterior force out there that's going to beam themselves down from a planet far, far away and save your volunteer fire department. You've got to take control of your volunteer fire department. And if you're turning around and members aren't there, how are they being treated? Is there activities to encourage them to come up? Are we making the firehouse a fun, safe place to be? Sometimes you got to look in the mirror and then to put programs together. It's not going to happen by snapping your fingers. And like I said, there's no alternative force out there that's going to come down and do it. Put a committee together, get some like-minded people together, come up with ideas. I can tell you, when our vice president came up with this cornhole night idea, I have no doubt there were some people that said it was going to completely fail. I have no doubt there are some people that probably rolled their eyes. And you know what? It's been nothing but successful for us. And the other night when I was down there, I took my wife the first night, and I got to say, she was 50-50 on it. I'll be completely honest, because she wasn't sure if it was something she can't throw a beanbag to save her life, but that's another story. Don't put that, cut that, edit, producer, cut that one out. I'm kidding. I don't.
Yeah, Senate director.
But she was kind of like, I don't know if I want to do it. You know what? The last 2 times she's at the door first going out saying, come on, we got to get up there, because it's a great social night to see friends. And
Not just because you take forever to get ready.
maybe that's true. Maybe that's true.
Yes,
But
Tom is always late. She's hearing.
so, but that is a part of it. Make it a social fun place to be as well. That part, that does play into the equation. And then there's the serious side, which we're here doing this week. And it's learning and training and getting information to take back to make us the best version of us that we possibly can be. Chief, in addition to those, the chief class you took several others, Devin. What were some of the other takeaways you might have?
So the Monday afternoon, I took a training class from a gentleman, Ed Buchanan from Hanover County, Virginia.
Yes.
And he was talking about training programs for both volunteer and combination departments. And, a lot of it was, what makes a good fire instructor, what, the different dynamics that go into building a training program. And it was good. It's reiterated a lot of stuff that we've already done. We have members that are fire instructors, and actually we have 3 or 4 that are going to the fire instructor course in September, October, I believe. So it stuff like that. And then Tuesday morning, I took your class, which I've taken before, but I took it again because it's been 5 or 6 years, and I actually got more stuff out of it and got some ideas, and so that was definitely worth my time. And if anybody out there hasn't seen it, I would recommend coming to FDIC and taking the professional volunteer firefighter.
I appreciate that. We did have a good class. We had 40, 41, 42 people. Engagement with the group was great. I always walk away with new ideas too. That's why I'm always still tweaking it and even working on it sometimes a couple hours before. So yeah, thank you for that plug. I did. It was a great group, one of a fun time, great group, people from all over. Met brothers and sisters from East Coast to West Coast. I can say that. California to New York, Texas was in the room, and Michigan was in the room. So north to south as well. So another great 4-hour conference here. And if you didn't make it, I'd love to see you here next year. And then, if I get invited.
Yeah. And then Tuesday afternoon, I took the Evolving Fireground, which had a lot to do with flow path and the NIST and UL studies that have gone on. And I have to apologize to the instructor at PJ Norwood, because I had to take a phone call, and which led me to not be able to go back. So I had to leave the class
duty
probably
call
about an hour early, and it wasn't because the material wasn't there. It was just duty called, and I had to take care of some chief business. And so I apologize if I left the class a little early on that, but it was great material too. So
duty called, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And you had an opportunity to see the legendary Billy Goldfeder.
Yeah, yesterday afternoon I sat in. It was him and Gordon Graham and Bobby Halton, and they discuss different issues in the fire service.
They have nothing to
today.
say. They
Yeah,
have nothing to say.
Yeah, and they did a really good job, and there was a couple of questions that were kind of hard topics that they couldn't talk about because they're kind of involved somewhat in it, but they with recent training issues and a training death in New York, but it was well worth the hour and 45 minutes that it just seemed to go by really quick. It seemed like it was like 10 minutes.
Yeah, and sometimes that's the problem with these classes. When you look through this catalog of courses, you find 4 or 5 that you want to take that are at the exact same time. I run into that every single year. And also every single year, I try to say I can't go to any classes on Friday because I've got to hit that trade room floor. And I already got a class scheduled for 8:30 tomorrow morning, followed by another one at 10:30 or 10:15, whenever it is. So I already know I'm going to get a late start on the floor tomorrow. And I know you cram a lot of classes in, but you're going to hit the floor tomorrow. But you did take that recruitment and retention. Was there anything new on recruitment you picked up or any
Well, I think the thing there was, and it was reinforced in the class, was the fact that it's a multifaceted. There's not one size fits all. I mean, I think, all the classes I've taken with regard to recruitment retention have been that way. There's different ways, and what works in one volunteer department might not work in another.
Right.
And I know in our own department, we're kind of going at this in 3 different, directions right now, and I'm sure there'll be more that they come up. So I think if I would say that anything is that there's just not one answer.
No.
And it depends on your department, where you're located, what your situation is, and then go from there.
Right.
But we've done several things, as you both know, in our department to increase. One of the latest being the duty shift program, which has been an outstanding success. And I think, as an old guy who's been in the fire service a long time, and as both of you have, we're evolving, we're changing. It's not the fire department it was 30 years ago, where people were knocking down our door and they were coming in and generations were coming in and the kids of the current firefighters were coming in, and we got to look at it differently now.
Right.
Me, I'm not a social media. You guys are great with the social media. I don't know about the TikTok and the who and the whatever here.
Maybe we should patent that name.
Yeah.
but really, I know that's a way to get to people.
Yeah.
And we have Captain Polvino. Both of you do a great job with that and reaching out. And that's how you reach out. Not my generation, but that's how you get the new gen. And that's great. That's fantastic that people understand that and are going down that avenue.
And I don't want to bring up a dark subject, but I know another area that you're very involved in back home for keeping an eye on the trends and what's going on. And you've sat through a class and you're going to sit through another one, but you want to touch on it, the cancer and the fire
I think
service?
we need to, because
have
it's a topic that affects each and every one of us. And then we're talking about cancer, firefighter cancers. And there's so many things that we can do. And what would Chief Lieb, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. I don't, be disrespectful. He is the most passionate advocate for being healthy and doing the right things when it comes to that sort of thing. His class is fantastic. And I've learned so much over the years going to these things that we never did that we should have been doing. Simple things like deconning on scene and coming back to the station and or going home in our case and taking a shower and washing our clothes and using wipes and there's putting the exhaust capture systems, and it's all very, very, very beneficial stuff. And as he said, you don't eat the elephant all at once. You do a little thing. You stay on, one of his quotes was, maybe you stay on air during overhaul 5 more minutes than you used to. And that's helping you. And it's little things like that we're making progress on. So, I mean, to your audience, Tom, I can't emphasize enough how important it is just to take care of ourselves when it comes to those kinds of things. We can do a lot. We can do a lot to keep ourselves safe. And when it shows up, is, you're right. I mean, and especially when you're young, you're invincible, you run through the wall. But you know what? Eventually that catches up to you.
And a couple of classes that I took that yeah, I took a ton of classes so far, as you have, but a couple takeaways I got from the classes I took. First class I took was on the commercial building fire, and it was by Dan Shaw from Fairfax County, Virginia, and Doug Mitchell, who's a captain in the FDNY. And they started off talking about, it's so apropos for, again, being at FDIC and training, just the importance of training, regular training. And of course, they talked about just how you learn things that you don't maybe need every day, but boy, when you need them, you got to go back into your mind. You got to rely on that reflex memory. And he talked about Sully Sullenberger, who of course landed the plane on the Hudson. And he basically, and I'll paraphrase it, that he made regular deposits into his bank of experience, and that was by training. And boy, when he needed to make withdrawal, it was a very large withdrawal, and that really stuck with me. And folks, that's the bottom line. You can't be a professional firefighter, a professional career firefighter, or a professional volunteer firefighter without embracing and understanding just how important training is. You can't fake it. You've got to be prepared. And that quote right there really resonated with me. Some of us took a ton of other information away at that class. Great class. If you ever get a chance to see Doug Mitchell or Dan Shaw teach it. Again, it's the commercial building fire. We talked a lot about the big the restaurant fires, McDonald's and that, and how they actually budget to replace the building if it happens to burn. And yet he talked about in Houston, Texas, where 2 firefighters were killed many years ago in a building that was torn down a day or 2 later anyway. And that really resonated with me too. But I know we're getting close to wrapping up here. So I just want to segue, since I was talking about Dan Shaw and Doug Mitchell. Those 2 gentlemen were delivering keynote addresses here, which I thought were excellent. And Dan Shaw yesterday was Sharpen Your Axe, and talked essentially about the importance of training and how we are students of the craft, and we need to share our knowledge and take care of those who trust us to take care of them, people who are depending on us to take care of them. And then, of course, we had the keynote address today by Doug Mitchell, which was just, I thought, really good. Did you gentlemen like that? Paul, did you like that?
Absolutely. No, it was excellent. And as that's what's great too about the opening ceremony and the general sessions, again, you just, I get my batteries recharged.
Every time we come here, right? And we're going to wrap things up here quick. Chief, do you have any last minute comments about FDIC or goals as chief? What do you want to do? Change us back to yellow trucks
change everything.
Change it back. Go back to 2.5-inch feeder hose and yellow truck, 2-inch. Yeah.
We're going back to 2-inch.
Okay. All right. Because
the only thing I can say is thank God we have commissioners.
New chiefs come in, they got to change everything, right? Commissioner
Yeah,
Griebner.
but I think we have the votes though.
Old rubber hose.
Can I get my rubber coat and 3/4
Yeah,
length
absolutely.
boot back?
Yep.
All right, thanks, Chief.
Any final words of wisdom from you, Commissioner Griebner?
I just wanted to thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
having us.
So I'd be remiss if I didn't end by acknowledging a dear friend of mine and the award he got at FDIC this year. Chief John Salka received the Lifetime Achievement Award, and he befriended me when he came in to my outgoing installation dinner. We've told that story. He tells the story all the time as well. But he truly has been an incredible mentor to me, an incredible friend to me. And I was really touched and moved when he got that award today, because I know he deserved it. But he's done so much for the fire service. And as you both know, he's a firefighter's firefighter. He'll be a friend to anybody. It's not that I'm special or anything like that. He saw that I had a vision and a passion to teach and write, and he helped open the doors along with Bobby Hall and some other people. But I'm just so honored to see him get that today. So happy for him. His wonderful family is here with him.
What a great family.
Yeah. And I'm just looking forward to being out with him tonight to celebrate with him. So congratulations, Chief Salka. Really, really happy for you. So that's it for live from FDIC, the Professional Volunteer Fire Department installment for this year. As always, thank you to Chief Halton. Thank you to Clarion and Penwell and Fire Engineering for the kind invitation to be here. Thank you to my 2 special guests here, Chief Tim Oliver, Commissioner Paul Griebner. Thank you for taking the time and missing a class to come hang out with me and talk to our listeners. And folks, if you've never been, you got to come on FDIC 2023. It's 2022 right now, though, isn't it? It's 2022, and our residents are owed professional service delivered by professional firefighters representing professional organizations. Take care, folks.